Millionaire CEO wanted a child, so he bought her dead. But taking her virginity changed everything. The hospital break room hummed with fluorescent light as Raya calculated months of survival on instant noodles and prayer, knowing neither would save her from financial ruin. 3 jobs already stretched her thin. Hospital aide by day, waitress evenings, delivery driver weekends. Her body ached from exhaustion, but her mind raced with impossible math. Have you ever been faced with a difficult decision? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She stared at the final notice $186,000 in medical debt, wondering if dignity was a luxury only the wealthy could afford. The paper trembled in her hands, the bold red letters blurring as tears threatened. Raya Mason, 25 years old, nursing student, and now officially drowning. 30 days to resolve this matter or face collections proceedings, she read aloud to her empty apartment, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. The hospital break room hummed with fluorescent light as Raya calculated months of survival on instant noodles and prayer, knowing neither would save her from financial ruin. 3 jobs already stretched her thin. Hospital aide by day, waitress evenings, delivery driver weekends. Her body ached from exhaustion, but her mind raced with impossible math. "You look like you need this more than me," Dr. Winters said, sliding a coffee across the table. His fingers brushed hers, lingering a moment too long. The attractive surgeon had been finding excuses to talk to her for weeks. "Thanks, but I need a miracle, not caffeine," she replied, pulling her hand away. His interest might have been flattering once, before desperation became her only companion. Her phone lit up. Another missed call from the collection agency. 6 today. The coffee turned bitter in her mouth as reality crashed back. Her mother's cancer treatments, the experimental procedure insurance refused to cover, the second mortgage on their family home. All of it piled onto her shoulders after Mom passed. The debt remained even when her mother didn't. That night, curled on her second-hand couch, Raya scrolled through options that grew increasingly desperate. Plasma donation, already maxed out. Medical studies, waitlisted. Even egg donation, rejected due to family health history. The ads grew darker as the night stretched on. Sugar daddy websites, questionable clinical trials, surrogate listings. Her finger hovered over one listing. High compensation for surrogacy, all expenses covered. The number made her dizzy. $200,000. More than enough. She was still contemplating impossible choices when her phone rang. An unknown Chicago number lighting up the screen at 11:47 p.m. If you've ever faced an impossible choice between your dignity and survival, you know the weight crushing Raya's chest right now. Would you answer a call that comes this late? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. "Hello," she answered, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Ms. Mason, this is Martin Wells, representing Dominic Vale of Vale Industries." The voice was crisp, professional. "Mr. Vale would like to discuss a matter of potential mutual benefit regarding your financial situation." My financial situation? Cold dread washed through her. How would he know about? "Mr. Vale has authorized me to inform you that he's aware of your circumstances and believes he can offer assistance. A car will arrive tomorrow at 9 a.m. to bring you to Chicago for a meeting. All expenses covered, of course. I have work tomorrow. I can't just..." Mr. Vale has already spoken with Hospital Administrator Collins. "Your shift has been covered. This opportunity won't come again." Yes. Mason, when her phone rang with an unknown Chicago number, she had no idea answering it would lead to a deal with a man who could erase her debt with a signature and claim something she protected for 25 years. The wealthiest man in the boardroom wanted the one thing she never planned to give away. At least not like this. Raya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Chicago sprawled 40 stories below, feeling as if she'd stepped into another dimension. The private jet, the luxurious hotel room where she'd been instructed to freshen up, the clothes laid out for her, a tasteful charcoal dress and modest heels. All of it felt like an elaborate dream. "Mr. Vale will see you now," the assistant announced, leading her through double doors into an office that could have housed her entire apartment with room to spare. Dominic Vale didn't stand when she entered. He remained seated behind a desk of dark wood and metal, eyes fixed on a tablet screen. At 38, he embodied power. Salt and pepper at his temples, broad shoulders beneath a custom suit, hands that looked both strong and precise. When he finally looked up, his eyes were winter gray and just as cold. "Ms. Mason, please sit." His voice was deeper than she expected, with an edge that suggested he rarely heard the word no. "I prefer to stand until I understand why I'm here," Raya replied, surprising herself with her steady tone. Fear masqueraded as courage when you had nothing left to lose. A small smile touched his lips. Direct. "Good. I appreciate efficiency." He stood then, revealing his full height, at least 6'3". "You owe $186, $427 in medical debt. I'm prepared to clear it entirely." Her heart stumbled. "Why would you do that?" "Because I want something you can provide." He moved around the desk, assessing her body with clinical interest that somehow felt more intimate than desire. "I need a child, a biological heir, without the complications of marriage or co-parenting." The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. "You want me to be your surrogate?" "Precisely." He gestured to a leather chair. "Now will you sit? There are details to discuss." His office overlooked Chicago from 40 stories up, the entire city laid out like chess pieces waiting to be moved by men like him. Men who saw everything as acquisitions. As he outlined his proposal, Raya's mind raced between disbelief and desperate calculation. Full medical coverage throughout the pregnancy and 6 months beyond. A separate compensation package of $150,000 upon successful delivery. The debt cleared immediately upon contract signing. His words were matter of fact, as if discussing whether rather than the purchase of her womb. "And the child," she managed to ask, "will be legally mine alone. You would relinquish all parental rights. After delivery, our arrangement would conclude." He slid a folder across the polished desk. "The contract is comprehensive. Take time to review it." Have you ever been offered something that solved all your problems but required crossing your own boundaries? What price would you put on your dignity? Share your thoughts below. The legal document was 26 pages of clinical language, transforming her body into property, her womb into rental space. Page 16 specified traditional conception method with a clinical efficiency that made her stomach twist. "You mean," she started, unable to finish. "Natural conception increases success rates significantly compared to clinical methods," he stated, eyes tracking her reaction. "Unless that presents a problem." Her cheeks burned. "It's just clinical. This is a business arrangement, Ms. Mason, not a romance." His gaze traveled over her again, less clinical now. "Is there something specific causing your hesitation?" When he slid the contract across the polished table, her debt erased in exchange for carrying his child, his fingers brushed hers. "One more thing," he said, voice dropping. "The medical screening shows you're inexperienced. Sexually." The way his expression changed told her everything was about to get more complicated. She signed her body away with a steady hand and racing heart. Not knowing her virginity would become the detail that changed everything. "Inexperienced is one way to put it," Raya admitted, chin lifting slightly. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford, but dignity remained. "I've been focused on education and caring for my mother. There hasn't been time for relationships." Something shifted in Dominic's expression, a flicker of surprise that softened his features momentarily before the businessman returned. "I see. That complicates matters. Does it void the offer?" Her heart sank. The promise of freedom from debt had already taken root, making its potential loss even more painful. "No." His response came quickly, "but it changes certain aspects." He pressed a button on his desk. "Cancel my next appointment and schedule Dr. Reynolds for an immediate consultation at the penthouse." The next hours blurred into clinical humiliation. The penthouse suite transformed into a medical examination room. White sheets and silver instruments gleaming under recessed lighting, turning intimacy into procedure. The female doctor was professional but thorough, confirming what Raya had already disclosed. Everything appears healthy, Dr. Reynolds informed Dominic directly, as if Raya weren't present. Fertility indicators are excellent. The subject is confirmed as having no previous sexual experience. The subject, that's what she become. Leave us, Dominic ordered, and the medical team efficiently disappeared. Raya pulled the paper gown tighter around herself. Can I get dressed now? In a moment. He approached, maintaining a respectful distance. The contract needs amendment. Your situation changes the compensation structure. Meaning, her voice wavered slightly. I'm increasing the personal compensation to $250,000. Her breath caught. Because I'm a virgin? Because the experience will be more significant for you. I believe in fair exchange. His eyes held hers, impossible to read. You should understand what you're trading. The doctor's gloved hands felt cold against her skin during the examination, but Dominic's gaze from the doorway before he turned away. That burned. What would you sacrifice for someone you love? Is there a price tag on your body, your future, your first intimate experience? If survival meant crossing your own boundaries, where would you draw the line? Hours later, alone in the hotel suite provided for her overnight stay, Raya stared at her signature on the amended contract. The debt would be clear by morning. In 2 weeks, she would return to Chicago for the conception weekend outlined in clinical detail on page 23. She thought of her mother's final days, of promises made to pursue her nursing degree no matter what, of the relentless collection calls that would now stop, of the foreclosure notice on her childhood home that would now be rescinded. The cost? Only herself. As she packed her overnight bag for their conception weekend, her phone chimed with a text from Dominic. Plans have changed. I'll pick you up myself. The contract didn't mention personal contact or why her heart raced reading those words. He brought champagne to take her edge off, then shocked her by pouring his glass down the drain. The black Bentley arrived precisely at noon. Dominic himself behind the wheel rather than the expected driver. He wore casual clothes, dark jeans, and a gray cashmere sweater that transformed him from untouchable CEO to merely intimidating man. I thought we were going to Chicago, Raya said, sliding into the passenger seat with her small weekend bag. Change of plans. His eyes remained on the road. I have a property on Lake Michigan, more private. The drive passed mostly in silence, the space between them charged with unspoken questions. The contract specified clinical efficiency, yet here they were, traveling like a couple to a weekend getaway. 3 hours later, they pulled onto a private drive, winding through dense trees. The cabin that emerged was all cedar and glass, modern luxury disguised as rustic retreat. This is yours? She asked, taking in the sweeping lake view. One of several properties. He lifted her bag before she could. Colleen, we should talk. The lakeside cabin looked nothing like the clinical setting she'd imagined. Crackling fireplace, soft lighting, and windows that framed stars like diamonds scattered across black velvet. A dinner for two was already laid out, steam rising from covered dishes. You hired staff? She asked, noting the elaborate meal. I cook. At her surprised look, he almost smiled. Contrary to what you might think, I wasn't always wealthy. Some habits remained from before. He uncorked champagne, pouring a glass that he offered to her. For nerves, he explained. When he poured his own, she expected a toast, some clinical acknowledgement of their arrangement. Instead, he carried his untouched glass to the sink and emptied it. You're not drinking? She asked. I need to be clear-headed. You might want the distance alcohol provides. I don't. He gestured to the table. Shall we eat first? Over dinner, he surprised her again by asking questions about her nursing studies, her goals. He listened with genuine interest as she described her specialty focus in neonatal care. You have remarkable compassion, he observed. It's rare. It's necessary, she countered. Medicine without compassion is just procedure. Something changed in his expression. Is that how you see our arrangement? Just procedure. Isn't that how you designed it? She challenged. After dinner, tension mounted as reality settled back between them. The bedroom door loomed at the end of the hallway, its presence growing more ominous with each passing minute. Have you ever been surprised when someone showed you unexpected respect? When someone saw your worth before you did? Share your experience below. We should discuss expectations, he said finally, his voice lower than before. The contract is clear about objectives, but not about boundaries. Boundaries? I signed away my rights. You signed a business arrangement, not your dignity. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Tell me what you need to feel comfortable. The question disarmed her completely. I don't know. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing her lower lip. I can't take this from you as a business transaction, he whispered. Not your first time. Her heart hammered against her ribs. But the contract can be fulfilled another way. Clinical insemination. Or, his voice dropped further. We can take time. Get to know each other first. Make it a choice, not an obligation. The offer hung between them, rewriting everything she thought she understood about this man and their arrangement. Why would you do that? She whispered. Because some things shouldn't be purchased, he said simply. They should be given. When she woke alone the next morning, a note beside her bed read, "Contract amended. Take the time you need." But the postscript made her breath catch. "I want you to want this." Want me? The line between transaction and desire had just blurred beyond recognition. She came to Chicago for a business arrangement. She left with something far more dangerous, possibility. 2 weeks passed with minimal contact. Just a daily text asking about her well-being and a notification that her debt had been cleared as promised. No pressure, no reminders of their arrangement, no demands. The freedom felt strange, weightless after years of crushing burden. When his assistant called to schedule a contract review meeting, Raya expected the businessman to return the brief humanity she'd glimpsed at the lake house, tucked away again behind power suits and clinical language. Instead, he suggested the botanical gardens. Neutral territory, he explained when his car delivered her to the glass-domed conservatory. He waited near the tropical section, again dressed casually in dark slacks and a light blue button-down that matched the clear sky outside. "How's your mother's home?" he asked as they walked between lush greenery. He'd arranged for the mortgage to be cleared along with her medical debt. "Secure," she said. "I'm still processing that it's really mine now. Thank you. You shouldn't have had to choose between education and family obligation." The botanical garden's glass ceiling captured raindrops like suspended diamonds, creating a world apart from contracts and obligations, a neutral territory where they could simply be two people trying to understand each other. The contract, she began, needing to address the elephant following them through the orchid display, is flexible, he finished. The terms regarding conception method and timing can be adjusted. What? The question had burned in her for weeks. You're paying the same amount. Why complicate it? He stopped beside a waterfall feature, the gentle rushing sound providing privacy in the public space. Because I've reconsidered what I'm actually purchasing. Meaning, I thought I was buying a service. But with you, his hand reached for hers, then hesitated, falling back to his side. I'd prefer mutual choice over transaction. Their hands accidentally brushed as they continued walking, the brief contact sending warmth through her fingers. His cologne, subtle cedar, and something distinctly masculine, registered each time she moved closer. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked, stopping beneath a flowering tree. "Dinner, conversation, the chance to know each other outside contractual obligation." His eyes, less cold than she remembered, held hers. The biological goal remains, but the method changes from business to potential relationship. "You want to date me?" The question emerged with disbelief. "I want to give you choice." For the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker across his features, and perhaps discover if there might be more between us than legal language. When has someone's unexpected kindness completely changed how you saw them? That moment when respect replaces assumptions? Share your thoughts in the comments. "What if I still want the clinical option?" she tested. "Then that's what we'll do. But I suspect neither of us truly wants that." His gaze traveled over her face, lingering on her lips. "The choice remains yours, Raya. Always." Her name in his mouth sounded different. Not a legal entity, but a person with agency. The shift was subtle, yet profound. One dinner, she agreed finally, to discuss terms. He nodded, keeping a respectful distance despite the tension vibrating between them. My driver will return you to your hotel. Is tomorrow acceptable? The formality made her smile despite herself. Yes. As his driver returned her to her hotel, Dominic's text lit up her phone. Dinner tomorrow. My home. Not for the contract. For words that shouldn't have made her pulse quicken. I want to know you. She entered his home expecting to find cold luxury. Instead, she discovered the man behind the money, and everything changed. The address led to a historic brownstone in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. Elegant, but understated compared to the glass and steel penthouse she'd expected. Dominic opened the door himself, no staff in sight. You cook? Raya asked, following the rich aroma of garlic and herbs toward the back of the house. I mentioned that at the lake house. He led her past formal rooms to a surprisingly homey kitchen. Copper pots hung from a rack. Vegetables lay half-chopped on a wooden cutting board, and a bottle of wine breathed beside 2 glasses. His kitchen, not the formal dining room, welcomed her with copper pots hanging overhead and the scent of garlic and wine. His suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up as he chopped vegetables with practiced precision. Most CEOs have personal chefs, she observed, accepting the glass he offered. I find cooking meditative. He returned to slicing mushrooms with expert precision. And I prefer privacy. Is that why you live here instead of some penthouse overlooking the city? Something shifted in his expression. This was my first real purchase after Vail Industries took off. Before that, he hesitated. Let's just say I understand financial hardship more intimately than you might think. As he cooked, the story emerged in pieces. His childhood in Detroit's struggling neighborhoods. His mother working multiple jobs, scholarships that never quite covered everything. The parallels to her own life emerged with each revelation. Medical technology was my way out. He explained, plating pasta with a sauce that smelled divine. I developed a cardiac monitoring system in college. The patent funded everything that came after. So the hospitals you build started because I watched my mother die waiting for care she couldn't access. The vulnerability in his admission hung between them, reshaping her understanding of the man across the table. Over dinner, their conversation flowed with surprising ease. Her nursing studies, his foundation work, books they'd both read, places they hoped to visit. The contract remained unmentioned, a ghost hovering at the edges of their connection. Why surrogacy? She finally asked as they moved to his living room with fresh wine. Why not marriage, the traditional route? His expression closed slightly. Marriage complicates business. I've seen what divorce does to companies, to innovation. A child, however, that's legacy without the legal entanglements. Children need more than legacy, she challenged. They need presence, love, stability, all of which I intend to provide. His eyes held hers, just without a partner who might eventually resent my work schedule or priorities. So you'd rather buy a woman's body temporarily than risk emotional investment? The wine had loosened her tongue, made her bolder. He moved closer on the sofa, the space between them charged with something beyond their contract. Is that what you think I'm doing with you? Just buying your body. What happens when what begins as obligation transforms into desire? When barriers between worlds dissolve? Share your thoughts below. Isn't that exactly what the contract specifies? She countered. The contract specified clinical conception until I met you. His voice dropped lower, until I saw someone worth knowing, not just hiring. The air between them thickened as he leaned closer, his hand lifting to brush a strand of hair from her face. May I kiss you, Raya? The formality of his request, the respect it conveyed, undid her final reservations. She nodded, barely breathing as his lips met hers, gentle at first, a question rather than a demand. When she responded, his restraint cracked, the kiss deepening with hunger that matched the heat building inside her. Each touch asked permission, each kiss a question she answered with increasingly urgent sighs. His hands explored with reverent patience, learning her responses, building tension that coiled tighter with each passing moment. Tell me to stop, he whispered against her collarbone, fingers tracing the edge of her blouse. "Never," she breathed, surprising herself with how much she meant it. He carried her to his bedroom, laying her on sheets that felt like clouds against her skin. Every item of clothing removed became a new question. Every exposed inch of skin worshipped with a tension that made her forget this had ever been business. When he finally joined their bodies, the momentary pain dissolved into waves of sensation she'd never imagined. His eyes never left hers, witnessing her transformation, her pleasure becoming his priority in ways no contract could have specified. Afterward, cradled against his chest, reality crashed back as her phone chimed with a hospital notification. Her next shift starting in hours. "This can't happen again," she whispered, more to herself than him. The contract doesn't allow for feelings. His silence was answer enough. She built walls her entire life, but never expected to build one against the man who now carried her secrets and scent on his skin. 3 days passed, then 7. By day 10, Raya had almost convinced herself that night had been a necessary step in their arrangement. Physical compatibility confirmed, nothing more. The contract remained in force, the goal unchanged. Only the method had shifted. So why did her apartment feel like a prison now? Her apartment felt different now. Smaller, emptier, the walls too close and the ceiling too low. The space hadn't changed, but she had, and now her carefully constructed world couldn't contain what she'd become. She threw herself into hospital shifts, taking extra hours that left her too exhausted to think. But nights brought dreams of his hands, his mouth, the way he'd looked at her, like she contained universes worth exploring. No messages appeared on her phone. The silence was exactly what she'd requested with her parting words. "So why did it feel like punishment?" "You look like hell," her supervisor commented during her 3rd double shift that week. "Whatever's keeping you up at night, deal with it before you make a medical error." What was keeping her up? Not financial worry. For the first time in years, her accounts contained actual balances. Not academic pressure. Her program director had praised her latest clinical evaluations. Not even the contract hanging over her head. Dominic had made it clear the timeline remained flexible. It was the memory of feeling seen. Truly seen, perhaps for the first time in her life. In her tiny bathroom, she stared at her reflection, searching for what he might have discovered worth knowing beyond the transaction. The woman who stared back looked the same. Brown skin, dark eyes, curls pulled back in her practical nursing style. Yet something had shifted beneath the surface, some awakening that couldn't be undone. On day 11, she drafted 17 different messages to him, deleted them all. Have you ever run from something good because it scared you how much you wanted it? When protection becomes prison. Tell me your experience in the comments. The contract sat in her drawer, legal language that now felt hollow compared to the unspoken agreement they'd created with touches and whispers. She'd signed away her body, but somehow given her mind without realizing the transfer of ownership. No, not ownership. That was the difference. He'd never tried to own her, only to know her. On day 12, she opened her door to find a small package. Not flowers or jewelry, but a leather-bound journal with one line on the first page. Some contracts are meant to be broken. Some are meant to be rewritten. Which is ours? Her answer would determine everything. They met on neutral ground, a park bench between their worlds, to discuss a contract neither wanted anymore. Chicago's lakefront path bustled with joggers and tourists, providing both privacy through anonymity and the safety of public space. Dominic waited on a bench facing the water, tension visible in his shoulders despite his casual clothing. "Thank you for coming," he said when she approached, not reaching for her, though his eyes tracked every detail of her appearance. Your note was persuasive. She sat beside him, careful to maintain space between them. "I've been respecting your request for distance." His voice remained neutral, though not easily. Rain threatened overhead, dark clouds mirroring the weight between them as they sat beside the lake, city skyline reflecting in rippled water, their worlds meeting in distorted perfection. "I needed time to think," she admitted. "This arrangement has become complicated because we acted on attraction rather than adhering to clinical terms." Because I wasn't supposed to feel anything. The admission cost her, vulnerability never coming easily. This was a transaction. Now it's something else, he finished when she faltered. Something neither of us anticipated. A jogger passed, music blaring from headphones, momentarily interrupting their bubble of tension. When silence returned, Dominic turned to face her fully. I've never been good at personal connections, he confessed. Business makes sense, clear objectives, defined parameters, measurable outcomes. People are unpredictable. Is that why you wanted a surrogate instead of a relationship? Control. His laugh held no humor. Precisely. And yet here we are, completely off script. What are you afraid of? She asked, the question surprising them both. When was the last time you were completely honest with someone about your fears? About what you really wanted? How did that vulnerability change everything? Share your experience below. The silence stretched between them, punctuated by distant thunder. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its practiced confidence. Failure, he admitted. My father abandoned us when the responsibility became inconvenient. My mother worked herself to death trying to compensate. Every relationship I've attempted has ended when my work demanded priority. His eyes met hers. I don't know how to balance personal connection with professional obligation. And I don't know how to accept help without feeling owned, she countered. Or how to want something for myself without guilt. Or how to trust that someone sees me for more than what I can provide. I see you, Raya. The simple statement carried weight beyond its 3 words. I see your determination, your compassion, your fierce independence. I see how you fight for dignity in a system designed to strip it away. The first raindrops fell, fat and cold against her skin. Neither moved. What do you want from me? She asked. Beyond the contract. Time, he answered immediately. The chance to discover what exists between us without legal parameters. The opportunity to know you, not as a surrogate, but as a woman who challenges everything I thought I understood about connection. And if it doesn't work? If we discover we're too different, want incompatible things, then we return to the original agreement or dissolve it entirely. Your choice. The rain intensified suddenly, drops becoming sheets of water that drenched them in seconds. They ran for the nearest shelter, a park pavilion already crowded with other rain-caught pedestrians. Running for shelter beneath a park pavilion, rain soaking through her dress, she realized with startling clarity that she was already falling, not just for him, but into a life she never thought possible. The only question was whether she would fight it or finally surrender to something that felt dangerously like hope. She invited him to her apartment, not as her owner or savior, but as a man who needed to understand. If he wanted her, it would be on equal ground. This is me, Raya said, unlocking the door to her 1-bedroom apartment in a modest building near the hospital. No designer furniture, no lake views, no housekeeper. Dominic stepped inside, taking in the space with interest rather than judgment. The nursing textbooks stacked on milk crates, serving as a bookshelf. The second-hand sofa draped with a colorful throw, the small kitchen table doubling as a desk. Her apartment, with its mismatched furniture and nursing textbooks stacked on milk crates, should have diminished her in his eyes. Instead, he moved through her space with reverence, touching her framed nursing awards with more respect than his own achievements. You've created a home, he observed, examining photos of her with her mother, her nursing school graduation, volunteer work at a community clinic. My house has more square footage, but less personality. That's the point of inviting you here, she said, watching him explore her world. You've seen me in your spaces, the office, the lake house, your home. I needed you to see me in mine, to understand the difference in our circumstances, to understand that if this becomes something real, I won't be absorbed into your world. I have my own. He nodded slowly. Fair boundary. She made coffee in her small kitchen, hyper-aware of his presence, filling her modest space. The power dynamic had shifted. Here, she controlled the environment, the pace, the narrative. Your clinical awards are impressive, he noted, examining the framed certificates on her wall, especially the community health recognition. That program almost died from budget cuts, she explained. We fought to keep services for uninsured mothers and infants, the same population my mother belonged to. His expression softened. Is that your specialty focus? Maternal infant health, yes, particularly for underserved communities. Something shifted between them, a recognition of shared values beneath their different circumstances. When he accepted the coffee mug she offered, their fingers brushed, electricity sparking from that simple contact. What feels more intimate, letting someone see your vulnerability or showing them your strength? Comment below with your thoughts. I've been thinking about your concerns, he said, settling on her sofa. About power imbalance, about maintaining your independence. And you're right. Any relationship between us would require conscious effort to ensure equality despite financial disparity. Can you handle that? She challenged. Truly? A woman who won't be impressed by your wealth or intimidated by your power. His eyes darkened. That's exactly what I want. Well, I've never found. The air between them thickened with tension that had nothing to do with their contract and everything to do with raw attraction. She moved closer, decision made. You don't own this, she whispered, guiding his hands across her body. You never will, but I'm choosing to share it. His eyes darkened as he knelt before her. Show me how, he said, and for once, power shifted entirely to her hands. She led him to her bedroom, smaller than his closet probably, but hers, on sheets that had seen countless exhausted nights after hospital shifts. She claimed him with a confidence that surprised them both. Each touch declared boundaries, even as it invited deeper connection, her body arching into his with deliberate intent rather than surrender. I'm not glass, she breathed against his mouth. Stop treating me like I'll break. His control snapped at her command, passion matching hers as they moved together. This was different from their first night. Less discovery, more declaration. Equal need, equal power, equal vulnerability. Afterward, wrapped in sheets damp with exertion, his phone chimed repeatedly with urgent notifications. The outside world intruding on their created sanctuary. Go, she said, recognizing the tension in his shoulders as he checked the messages. It's okay. Morning light revealed notifications flooding her phone. Hospital gossip about her arriving in Dominic Vale's car. Speculation already spreading. Their private world had just collided with reality, and she wasn't prepared for the impact. They say love crosses boundaries, but nobody mentions how those boundaries fight back, especially when one lover comes with wealth and the other with whispers. Did you really think nobody would notice? Dr. Winters asked, cornering Raya in the medication room. His tone carried the sting of rejection beneath false concern. Vale Industries CEO doesn't exactly keep a low profile. My personal life isn't hospital business, she replied, focusing on the medication chart rather than his probing gaze. It is when his company just donated $10 million to our cardiac wing. He leaned closer. People are talking, Raya, wondering what special skills earned you the attention of Chicago's most eligible bachelor. The implication burned like acid. Before she could respond, her supervisor appeared in the doorway. Mason, Administrator Collins wants to see you. Now, the walk to administration felt like a death march, whispers following her progress. The hospital had been her sanctuary, her purpose. Now it felt hostile, contaminated by speculation. Collins, a woman who'd never spoken more than 5 words to her before, gestured to a chair. Understand you've become acquainted with Dominic Vale. My personal relationships aren't relevant to my performance, Raya stated firmly. They're when they involve major donors. Collins studied her with calculated interest. Vale Industries is funding our new maternal care center. The board is naturally curious about Mr. Vale's sudden interest in our hospital. Perhaps you should ask him. I'm asking you, is this relationship serious or temporary? The question's implication was clear. Was she a passing entertainment for a powerful man or something worth accommodating? The hospital charity gala transformed as they entered together. Crystal glasses pausing mid-toast, conversation dimming to whispers that followed like shadow. The invisible line between Chicago's elite and its workers suddenly, publicly crossed. Dominic had insisted she accompany him to the hospital's annual fundraiser, refusing to hide their relationship despite her concerns about appearances. In a dress he'd sent, midnight blue that made her skin glow, she entered the hotel ballroom on his arm, feeling every eye track their progress. "Ignore them," he murmured, hand warm against her lower back. "Their opinions are irrelevant." "Easy for you to say," she whispered back. "You don't have to work with them tomorrow." Board members approached with practiced smiles that didn't reach their eyes, assessing her with barely concealed curiosity. Dominic introduced her not as his date, but as the brilliant nursing specialist whose community health initiatives deserve funding consideration, positioning her as professional equal rather than arm decoration. Have you ever faced judgment for who you chose to love? How did you handle the pressure from others who thought they knew better? Share your experience in the comments. Later, escaping for a moment of quiet, she found herself cornered in an empty corridor by Dr. Winters and two board members. Such a rapid rise from student nurse to influencing hospital funding, one commented with false lightness. One might wonder what special talent secured such attention. Before she could defend herself, Dominic appeared behind them, his expression dangerous in its calm. "Gentlemen, I believe you're discussing my personal relationship with Nurse Mason in a manner that borders on harassment." The men stammered apologies, retreating quickly. He pressed her against the wall, mouth claiming hers with possession that answered every whispered question about who belonged to whom, both marking territory in plain sight of her world. "You didn't need to do that," she said when they separated. "I can fight my own battles." "I know you can, but you shouldn't have to." His eyes held hers. "Not when I can eliminate the problem entirely." Meaning, Vail Industries is establishing a nursing education foundation. "We need a director with clinical experience and community health background." His expression remained neutral. "The position would remove you from hospital politics while advancing your career." The offer hung between them, solution and complication in one. When the hospital administrator mentioned budget cuts to the nursing program she'd fought to build, Dominic's casual response chilled her. Perhaps Vail Industries could fund it instead. The power she'd forgotten he wielded suddenly felt both salvation and threat. Blurring lines she'd carefully drawn between their worlds. She grew up believing survival was the highest goal, until the day he offered her the chance to build something that would outlast them both. "A foundation?" Raya repeated, the word hanging between them in his office the following morning. "You want me to run a foundation? I want you to build it," Dominic clarified, spreading architectural plans across his desk. The Vail Nursing Education Initiative. Full scholarships for students from underserved communities, clinical training facilities, community health programs. "And you just decided this? Without consulting me?" His expression shifted, recognizing his misstep. "I presented the concept to the board yesterday. They approved the funding. But the vision, that needs to be yours." She studied the preliminary documents, mind racing. "This would require me leaving my hospital position. It would elevate you from employee to executive director. From implementing programs to creating them." He watched her carefully. "It would also remove you from the hospital politics, currently making you miserable." The scale of what he proposed staggered her. Millions in funding, a dedicated building, programs that could transform healthcare access for communities like the one she'd grown up in. "Why me?" she asked finally. "There are people with decades more experience, with connections, with—" "None of them understand both worlds like you do," he interrupted. "The clinical reality and the patient experience. The system's failures and its potential." His eyes held hers. "None of them have your vision or your heart." The conference room fell silent as she presented her vision. Not with apologetic smiles, but with the confidence of someone who had walked hospital halls at 3 a.m., who knew precisely what future nurses needed because she had once been them. 2 weeks later, she stood before Vail Industries' executive board, presenting the foundation framework she'd developed. No longer the nervous woman who'd first entered this building desperate for debt relief. She commanded the room with quiet authority, outlining programs that would transform nursing education and community health access. The current model fails communities most in need, she explained, advancing through her presentation slides. By creating pathways for students from those same communities, we build a healthcare workforce that understands the populations they serve. The board members, mostly older white men in expensive suits, watched with expressions ranging from skepticism to intrigue as she detailed scholarship structures, mentorship programs, and community clinic partnerships. The return on investment isn't just financial, she concluded. It's measured in lives improved, communities strengthened, and a healthcare system that finally serves everyone equally. When she finished, silence held for 3 heartbeats before the questions began, pointed, challenging, testing her knowledge and resolve. She answered each with calm precision, never backing down. "I move we approve the full funding package," the board chair announced finally. "Ms. Mason has clearly done her homework. What would you build if someone handed you the resources to make real change? What problem would you solve first? Share your vision below." Later, alone in Dominic's office, the professional mask fell away as excitement overtook her. They approved everything. She marveled, still processing the victory. Even the community clinic network. They recognized excellence when they saw it. Pride colored his voice as he locked the office door. "You are magnificent." He lifted her onto the conference table where moments before she'd changed the minds of men who controlled billions. "You are magnificent," he growled against her throat, hands sliding beneath her skirt in worship rather than possession. The professional triumph transformed into personal celebration as they came together with an urgency born of shared vision and mutual respect. Her body arched against the cool surface where her career had just transformed, his mouth tracing promises against her skin. "We're really doing this," she whispered afterward, straightening her clothing. "Building something that could change thousands of lives." "You're doing it," he corrected. "I'm just providing resources." The foundation announcement made national news. Healthcare giant and unknown nurse launch revolutionary program. But the reporter's final question made her blood run cold. "Sources say your relationship began with a contract of a different nature." Care to comment? Someone knew everything. The media called her a gold digger. His board called her a distraction. But what nobody understood was how completely they'd misjudged her power. The headline screamed from her tablet screen. Vale's secret contract. Billionaire purchased girlfriend through debt forgiveness deal. Beneath it, details of their original surrogacy arrangement, including the clinical language about natural conception methods and her virgin status at signing. "How do they get this?" she demanded, pacing Dominic's living room. The contract was confidential. Someone leaked it. His voice remained calm, though tension radiated from his shoulders. "Legal is already investigating. Investigating won't undo this." She thrust the tablet at him, showing comments beneath the article. "Gold digger, prostitution with extra steps, bought and paid for." His expression darkened as he read. "We'll issue a statement." "Saying what? That you didn't actually buy me, you just changed the terms of ownership?" Tears threatened, but anger burned hotter. "Everything I've worked for, my reputation, my credibility with the foundation, it's all contaminated now. Only if we let it be." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "Easy for you to say. You're the billionaire who can buy whatever he wants. I'm the poor black nurse who sold herself." Camera flashes exploded like lightning as they pushed through reporters outside his building. Questions reducing their complex truth to headlines and scandal. His hand found hers, fingers interlacing, not guiding her, but drawing strength. The press conference was Dominic's idea. Face the story directly rather than hide. Against her better judgment, Raya agreed, standing beside him at Vale Industries headquarters as cameras captured every expression. The initial contract between Ms. Mason and myself was legal and ethical, Dominic stated to the assembled reporters. It was also mutually dissolved when our relationship evolved beyond business parameters. "So you admit you purchased sexual access to Ms. Mason through debt forgiveness?" a reporter called out. Raya stepped forward before Dominic could respond. He admitted nothing of the sort. The original agreement was a standard surrogacy contract. What evolved afterward was entirely separate, a relationship between equals that developed through mutual respect and shared values. A relationship conveniently worth millions to you, another voice challenged. I was qualified for my position before I met Mr. Vale, she countered, voice steady despite her racing heart. My clinical record and community health work speak for themselves. The Foundation's mission addresses critical healthcare gaps that have nothing to do with our personal relationship. Have you ever had your private life exposed or judged? How did you reclaim your narrative, your dignity? Share your experience in the comments. The questions continued, increasingly hostile, until Dominic ended the conference. In the privacy of his car afterward, she finally allowed tears to fall. They'll never see me as anything but a transaction now, she whispered. Everything I've built, everything I am, reduced to a contract. Then we fight harder. His voice held quiet determination. We proved them wrong through actions, not words. They made love with desperate intensity that night, as if trying to remind themselves what was real beneath the noise. His mouth capturing her gasps, her nails marking his back, claiming what was theirs alone. Morning brought fresh challenges. Vale Industries stock dropping, foundation donors expressing concerns, hospital colleagues sending messages ranging from support to judgment. The emergency board meeting felt like a tribunal, executives questioning whether the foundation could survive the scandal, whether Raya's leadership remained viable. The mission hasn't changed, she argued, standing firm despite their skepticism. The communities we serve still need these programs, regardless of your opinions about my personal life. When his chief counsel suggested a public statement calling their relationship purely professional, she felt Dominic tense beside her. But before he could speak, nausea overtook her, sending her racing from the room. The calendar on her phone confirmed what she already suspected. She was late. 6 weeks late. The pregnancy test showed 2 lines, conceived not from contract but from choice, turning transaction into miracle. Raya stared at the plastic stick on her bathroom counter, the second pink line unmistakable despite its faintness. Not possible. They'd been careful, mostly careful, except that night after the foundation approval and the weekend at the lake house when emotions ran high. Her hands trembled as she calculated dates. 6 weeks, maybe 7. Long after the original contract had been set aside, conceived in passion rather than obligation. Ms. Mason? The technician's voice pulled her back to the present moment, the cold exam room, the ultrasound machine humming beside her. Dr. Abrams will be in shortly to confirm the results. The doctor's office hummed with gentle efficiency as the ultrasound screen flickered to life, transforming abstract possibility into concrete reality, a tiny fluttering heartbeat that existed because they had broken every rule they set. There's your baby. Dr. Abrams pointed to the small pulsing light on the screen, measuring right at 7 weeks. Strong heartbeat. A baby, not a contract fulfillment, but an unplanned creation. The irony wasn't lost on her. The child originally meant to be negotiated into existence had instead arrived through love. Everything looks healthy, the doctor continued, printing images. Given the media attention surrounding you lately, we've implemented extra privacy protocols for your file. The reminder of their public scrutiny dampened the moment's wonder. How would this news play in the press? In the boardroom? In the communities they were trying to serve? Dominic waited in her apartment when she returned, concern etched across his features. You left the meeting so suddenly. Are you all right? She handed him the ultrasound image without words, watching comprehension dawn across his face. Are you? For once, his practiced eloquence failed him. 7 weeks pregnant. She sank onto the sofa beside him, not according to contract, just according to nature. His hand reached for hers, fingers intertwining. How do you feel about it? The question, simple, direct, centered on her feelings rather than his, confirmed everything that had changed between them. Terrified, she admitted. Overwhelmed. But also, she placed her free hand over her still flat stomach, strangely peaceful. Like something that was always meant to happen, just happened. Life's biggest surprises often come when we've stopped following the plan. When has an unexpected turn changed your entire path? Was it blessing or chaos? Share your thoughts below. His lips traced the still flat plane of her stomach with wonder, moving lower with deliberate slowness. Every inch of you is miraculous, he whispered against her inner thigh, making her gasp as he showed her exactly how deep his reverence went. Later, wrapped in sheets and each other, reality intruded again. The press will have a field day, she murmured. Contract baby after all, they'll say. Let them. His voice held steel beneath the tenderness. We know the truth. The foundation will continue its work regardless. His hand splayed protectively over her abdomen. This changes nothing professionally. It changes everything personally. She met his gaze directly. We need to discuss what happens next. As reporters camped outside her apartment building, his solution seemed simple. Move in with me. But her hesitation made him step back. Unless, he said carefully, this was never meant to be more than our original agreement. The contract that brought them together now stood between them like a wall neither knew how to tear down. She once sold her future to escape her past. Now he was asking her to choose both with him. I need time, Raya said, gathering her clothes. 3 days had passed since the pregnancy revelation, days filled with doctor appointments, foundation meetings, and careful avoidance of the deeper conversation waiting between them. We don't have the luxury of time. Dominic watched her dress, still reclined against his pillows. The press is speculating wildly. The board wants a clear narrative. And practically speaking, your lease ends next month. So this is about practicality? She buttoned her blouse with fingers that weren't quite steady, moving in together because it's convenient. This is about facing reality. He sat up, sheet pooling at his waist. You're carrying my child. Our child. The world is watching. And yes, I want you with me, where I can ensure you're both safe and comfortable. In your world. On your terms. His expression tightened. What exactly are you afraid of, Raya? The question hit its mark. What was she afraid of? Losing herself in his wealth and power? Becoming an accessory rather than a partner? Or something deeper? The vulnerability of truly belonging to someone after a lifetime of self-reliance? I'm afraid of disappearing, she admitted finally. Of becoming Dominic Vale's pregnant girlfriend instead of Raya Mason. Understanding softened his features. Then we need to ensure that doesn't happen. The hospital rooftop where she often escaped for breaks now held them both. City lights spread below like earthbound stars. Helicopter pad empty save for a blanket and the man who had rewritten her understanding of choice. The Foundation's first community clinic had opened that morning, her vision made concrete, serving the neighborhood where she'd grown up. The pride of that accomplishment still hummed through her veins as Dominic led her to the hospital's rooftop garden, a place she'd often retreated to during difficult shifts. How did you arrange this? She asked, noting the privacy, the blanket laid out, the small lanterns creating pools of golden light. Your supervisor owed me a favor. His smile held mischief. Actually, the entire hospital administration owes me several. Pulling rank to arrange a date? She raised an eyebrow. Very billionaire of you. Using resources to create a moment worthy of what I need to ask you. He took her hands, suddenly serious. I've been thinking about what you said, about disappearing into my world, and you're right to be concerned. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. Power imbalances don't vanish through good intentions. They require conscious effort and structural change. What would your answer be to someone who offered you everything, but you feared losing yourself? Is love worth the risk of reinvention? Share your thoughts in the comments. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing not a ring box as she'd half expected, but a folded document. This is a partnership agreement. Legal, binding, separate from any personal commitment between us. She unfolded it, scanning terms that guaranteed her professional autonomy, financial independence, and equal decision-making regarding the Foundation, regardless of their personal relationship status. You're offering me a business partnership? Confusion colored her voice. I'm offering you equality on paper, not just in words. He knelt then, producing a small velvet box. And yes, I'm also asking if you'll marry me. Not because of the baby or the press or convenience, but because I love who I am when I'm with you. She straddled him beneath open sky, taking control of their pace, their pleasure. See me, she commanded. And he did, not as vessel or conquest, but as equal, as future as home. Their lovemaking on the blanket beneath Chicago's night sky felt like sealing a covenant. Her body moving above his, setting the rhythm, claiming equal power in their pleasure. His eyes never left hers, witnessing her strength rather than her surrender. Yes, she whispered against his mouth as they moved together. To the partnership, to marriage, to building something neither of us could create alone. When she finally said yes, slipping his ring on her finger, his phone lit with urgent messages. The board had called an emergency vote on his leadership, citing moral concerns about their relationship. They can't take what we've built, he promised. But her hand protectively covered her stomach as doubt whispered. Perhaps they already had. The body she once offered in desperation now created life by choice. Their greatest achievement built not of concrete and glass, but blood and hope. They can't actually remove you as CEO, Reyes said, pacing the conference room where they awaited the board's decision. You hold controlling interest. They can make operating the company impossible, Dominic replied, outwardly calm though tension lined his shoulders. Freeze projects, block partnerships, leak damaging information. All because you fell in love with a wrong woman? All because I challenged their narrow vision of appropriate behavior. He caught her hand, stilling her movement. Whatever happens, we face it together. The boardroom doors opened, revealing the chairman's impassive face. The board has reached its decision. They entered hand in hand, facing the row of executives whose judgment would shape their future. The chairman cleared his throat. After reviewing all factors, including recent foundation performance metrics and community response, the board has voted to maintain current leadership structure with conditions. The conditions proved surprisingly reasonable. Increased transparency about foundation operations, clear separation between personal and professional decisions, regular board updates on program metrics. They blinked, Dominic murmured as they left the building. They recognized they need us more than we need them. They recognized we're stronger together than apart, she corrected, squeezing his hand. The newly built medical training center gleamed in morning sunlight, her name beside his on the dedication plaque. Not as wife or mother, but as founder, visionary, the nurse who transformed how healthcare workers were valued. 1 year later, they stood together at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Vail Mason Center for Healthcare Education, a gleaming facility in the heart of her childhood neighborhood. Students from the community would train there, then serve the same families they'd grown up alongside. Her pregnancy had progressed beautifully, her body now 8 months, rounded with the daughter they'd created. The press had eventually tired of their story, moving on to fresher scandals, leaving them to build their vision in relative peace. This center represents more than education, she told the gathered crowd, one hand resting on her belly. It represents possibility, the possibility that where you begin doesn't determine where you finish. That value isn't measured by wealth, but by contribution. Dominic stood slightly behind her, allowing her the spotlight she'd earned. Their relationship had found its balance, his resources amplifying her vision, her compassion humanizing his ambition. Equal partners with different strengths. So what would you do if someone saw your worth before you recognized it yourself? Would you run? Or would you build something lasting? Comment below with what you would have done in her shoes. They made love in their home, not his mansion or her apartment, but the renovated brownstone they'd chosen together. His lips traveling the landscape of her now rounded belly with reverence that acknowledged her body had never been transaction, but always temple. I never imagined this, she whispered as they lay intertwined, her body heavy with their child, her finger bearing his ring. When I signed that contract, I thought I was selling my future to escape my past. And instead I found someone who saw possibility in me when all I could see was limitation. Her hand guided his to where their daughter kicked strongly. Someone who offered power instead of control. You had the power all along, he murmured against her skin. I just had the privilege of witnessing it unfold. The contract that once defined them now lay forgotten in a drawer. Legal language rendered meaningless by the covenant they'd written instead with choice, respect, and love that expected nothing in return. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that make you feel, think, and maybe even heal a little. Tell me in the comments which part of their journey resonated most with you. And remember, true power isn't in what you can buy, but in what you choose to give freely.